What's up, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome to the Early Edge. We've got a show full of picks, full of energy, and full of positivity today. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games. But before we even get to Monday Night Football and the whole slate of Monday bets, we had a lot of picks over the NFL weekend. Let's take a look at them. We've got 2 pages of this stuff, and it was 23, 14, and 1 overall. Again, 23 and 14 over 1 and 1 overall. It looks like a split on page 1. I mean, we had a few more wins than losses, but page 2 here, man, that prop show. Pay attention to Dave Richard, EC, and Proppy. They absolutely killed it on Friday. Our guy, Danny Brasco, goes 2-0, takes the Cowboys contrarian play, takes the contrarian underplay. RJ White had a good day. We just really crushed it this week. We're going to try to do better next week, of course, but we're going to do even better on this Monday. Stay happy, stay positive, because we're bringing in some serious star power here. We've got Mike McClure. We've got the Maestro. We've got Buckets, and we've got Danny Brasco. And gentlemen, I don't want to waste any time because we don't have 1 Monday Night Football game tonight. We've got 2. Let's get it started right off the bat with the Titans and the Dolphins. One of our 2 marquee matchups here. There's a 14-point spread. Was 13.5. It is ticked up here at BetMGM. Minus 14. It's a 46-point total. Maestro, I'm starting with you. Which direction are you going in this one?
Dolphins are pass for me. Could not be a worse matchup for the Titans. They're missing their best pass rusher, Jeffrey Simmons, their best defensive player. They also might be missing their best run stopper. Sia Nejad is questionable. They're 30th against the pass, passer rating allowed, pass efficiency defense going up against, obviously, the #1 passing attack in the NFL. I think it's a terrible spot. I did read some good commentary from a Titans site saying there is a bright side. We could get a better draft pick.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go right there. Mike, let's talk about minus 14 and a 46-point total in this one. Any leans one way or the other?
It's really uncomfortable. I would lean Titans at 14 or 14.5. However, I would not recommend playing it pregame. The only reason for that is I do not expect them to be out to an early lead. I think you'll have a few more friendly numbers in game with the Dolphins starting hot the way they typically do. I make the number right at 13. So it is a key number of 14. But like Larry said, it's not a situation I'm eager to attack. I don't think there's a ton of motivation for the Titans to win here at this point now. So I'm staying off of the side. If I had to play it, it probably would be the Titans at 14. Just such a big number, easy to get in on the back door at that number in the NFL. But I would much rather have a live number of 17.5 to 20.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Danny, is I'm trying to figure out a way to bet this game other than some props that I'm going to put in on SportsLine later. One of the things I was considering, and you were so sharp yesterday, I want to get your take here. The Dolphins really start out hot. They typically really start out hot, and then they throttle down. We saw that when they played the Commanders, for example, where they basically didn't even have to play in the fourth quarter. I was considering the Dolphins minus 7.5 first half. Your thoughts on that and your thoughts on this game in general, minus 14, 46-point total?
First half is an interesting play because the Titans certainly could be in a negative game script here. But like Mike said, 14 is a massive number. Larry pointed out the matchup woes, super concerning with Jeffrey Simmons out. Sia Nejad is a massive factor. If they don't have him as well, that defensive line goes from an extremely efficient run defense to missing their 2 best pieces there. So I could see a world where Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and the Dolphins are getting out to a quick start. But if I was going to play it, I like the 14. I'm not going to. I agree with Mike there, but I think that Vrabel, 60% win cover rate as an underdog for his career, he might find a way to make the game nasty, make it ugly, and take away some of the flashy offensive tactics that the Dolphins have, and find a way to cover this wide spread. But I won't be betting it.
And Buckets, before we get to our second marquee matchup, I do want to point out that we have Will Levis at quarterback here, and on Thursday Night Football, it looks like, because of injuries to Justin Herbert, it looks like it's going to be Easton Stick against Aiden O'Connell. Do you mind on Thursday when we do this 10 a.m. show, maybe you give us a no-fly zone pick on that game?
Who are the 2 quarterbacks on Thursday, you said?
Aiden O'Connell and a gentleman by the name of Easton Stick.
Okay, I can absolutely give you a no-fly zone on Thursday. We've actually cashed on A. O'Connell this season already, so I'll have to look into this new guy, Stick, whoever that was.
Fair enough. All right, let's get to the second marquee matchup. We have a little bit of a tighter spread here at BetMGM. We've got the Packers on the road, favored by 6. The New York Giants, they're trotting out Tommy DeVito, and the Giants coming off a bye. I mean, they do have a bit of momentum, not as much as Jordan Love and company. Maestro, I'm going right back to you. It's a 37-point total. Where are we at on this one?
I'm buying into the Giants and definitely leaning towards the points, especially if you can get 6.5. But even 6, I'm good with. I mean, Tommy DeVito, he is very well liked. They're going to lean on Saquon, who is totally rested, coming off the bye. The Packers don't have Christian Watson. They don't have Jair Alexander. They probably won't have Quay Walker, who had 13 tackles last time, a key guy in terms of stopping the run. Yes, Jordan Love has been unbelievable the last 3 games with 8 TDs, no picks, and Dobbs and Jaden Reed and Wicks are good targets that have also emerged. But I just think it's a big number coming off those monster wins that Green Bay had, coming into a terrible team like the Giants. The one caution is that the Giants have played 4 night games, and they've been outscored by about 100 points in those games.
Is that like an actual number, or were you just like totally exaggerating?
It's like 118-24 or something like that.
Jeez, I knew you weren't exaggerating. I just wanted to bold-face the point there. And by the way, I appreciate you mentioning UVA product Dontavian Wicks because he might be featured later on in the show. Mike, I'm going to you here. It does seem like if you're taking the Packers here, you're taking them while their stock is extremely high, which is not usually a place where I want to make a purchase. Where are you at on this one?
Yeah, you typically don't want to buy at the peak market value. And it's always interesting when you have a team like the Giants or any team, on a second or third quarterback, that definitely changes things on that side. So I have liked what I've seen, from both sides, really. In terms of the Giants side, I want to temper the expectations a little bit, just considering the opponents that they played when they've had some of the success. So as far as where the number is for the game, I think it's right where it is. I wouldn't feel great getting the 6 or 5.5, which is honestly where I think it closes, is 5.5. Wouldn't feel great with the Giants at 5.5. Would feel pretty good at 6.5 or 7. So I'm off of the side in a way. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. If you force me to play it at 6 or 5.5, it would be a lean to the Green Bay side. If you force me to play it and we're able to find 6.5 or 7, it would be on the Giants side. But I think that Larry is correct. I think Saquon's going to have a day, and I think the Giants are going to score points tonight.
A lot of professional teases to our best bets, which are coming up in just a couple of minutes. Danny Brasco, Packers -6 on the road, 37-point total. Where are you at on this one?
Yeah, I feel like the spread and the total are pretty sharp numbers here. The public's going to be all over the under. We know about primetime unders. Another one cashed last night, but this low total of 37 is slightly concerning to me. Normally, I'd be jumping towards it. But a key factor for the Packers and for this game to potentially see points scored is Jordan Love against the blitz. And we know defensive coordinator for the Giants, Wink Martindale, loves to send the blitz. Second highest rate in the league, only behind Brian Flores, whose middle name might as well be Blitz. And Jordan Love has thrived against it. 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, I should say, against the blitz. So Wink is not sending, the front 4 and just dropping back. He's sending pressure. And if Jordan Love is able to pick that apart, I could see a world where the Packers have success and Saquon has success. This game goes over. And the spread I won't be touching. I think that number 6 is super sharp.
Yeah, I believe Martindale sends pressure, sends extra men at least 40% of the time. And it's interesting, too, because he's usually leaving his guys on an island, whereas the Brian Flores defense, it's a little different. They're going to prevent the deep shot even on those blitzes, have a couple safeties back. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Jordan Love tries to dice this up with really no Christian Watson, with 3 receivers that are relatively unknown to most onlookers. All right, well, where do you want to place these marquee matchup bets? How about BetMGM? BetMGM has all the action for every sports fan. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get a first bet offer up to $1,500. If your first bet loses, you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets with bonus code EDGE1500. That's EDGE1500. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's finally time to get to our best bets, and we're going to start out with buckets. But before we do that, we got to hear a word from our partners.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
We are back here on the early edge in buckets. I know we teased the no-fly zone for Thursday, but you've got a couple of picks in soccer that I believe are today, maybe even early this afternoon, late morning. Clarify on that and tell us what your picks are.
Well, see, I know you're a big pop culture reference guy, so let me see if I can do this. There's a small little show you might have heard of called Game of Thrones. And this past weekend in the soccer world, we had the equivalent of what was our Red Wedding. It was an absolute massacre of all of the top clubs. Bayern Munich lost 5-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt. Manchester United lost 3-0 to Bournemouth at home at Old Trafford. Barcelona conceded 4 goals to Girona. There is absolutely no consistency right now in the top European clubs, and it feels almost impossible to bet on these heavy favorites because we are watching minus 2,500s lose by 4 goals right now, which is unheard of. So to find value in soccer right now, I'm going to a lot of these little leagues, and I'm actually focusing on a bit of juice on some of these plays because to find consistency, we have to adapt how we're playing things right now. So I'm starting with the Slovenian SNL, which is the top flight of Slovenian soccer, and a matchup between NK Radomže and NK Maribor. And this one is juiced at minus 150. But I am not kidding when I say that I would have played this all the way up to minus 200, minus 250. This is a ridiculous line. I'm on Maribor over 1.5 team total at that minus 150. And this match starts at 11:30. So you've got to get this bet in now. These teams, it's a bit of a smaller league. They've played 5 times in the last 14 months, and Maribor has outscored Radom 20 goals to 2. This is a team that is just leagues better right now, and this line, even at minus 150, is just not correct. If you want to sprinkle over 1.5 team total and maybe ladder that a bit, 2.5 team total, 3.5 team total, I don't hate that as well because this game could get very ugly. Then we're going to the Turkish Super League for a match starting at noon in a big matchup between Konyaspor and Sivasspor. And the Turkish Super League is honestly, it's a bit of a mess right now. From 19th on the table to 10th on the table, there are only 5 points separating 10 clubs in the Turkish Super League, which means half of the league is currently a part of a relegation battle and relegation conversation. When you find teams that are already in must-win situations like this, and a matchup where both teams could considerably get points here, my favorite way to bet this hands down is both teams to score at minus 130. If you want to add over 2.5 to that to get to plus odds, I am okay with that. But these are two teams that will be desperate for any kind of consistency right now. These are two teams that are actually pretty good at attack, but are appalling at defense. Give me goals in that one all day, Sia.
All right. And you know what's funny? Little fun fact about me, everybody. I've never watched a single episode of Game of Thrones, and I think I'm like the only one on the planet that can say that. It's just not my type of show. I never wanted to. Oh, okay, Mike McClure too.
Never seen.
No, Maestro, you've never watched an episode either?
I finally have a like pop culture reference, and nobody. That's fine.
Isn't that ironic?
That's fine.
Of all times, I know everybody's in the chat. Tell us if it's properly, because everybody loves that show. Tell if it's properly rated or overrated. And of course, we'll know you're referring to Game of Thrones, properly rated or overrated, because just not my type of show. I'm sure it's super engaging, super entertaining. I rather the more, I don't know, not fact-based, but not the fantasy dragon stuff. Maybe I'm mischaracterizing it. But anyway, let's get to my pick for tonight. I might end up having 2 or 3 picks tonight, but the one I wanted to lead with was Dontavian Wicks. He was mentioned by the Maestro earlier today. I've got his over receiving of 30.5 yards. Listen, there's going to be 3 receivers that are going to be featured here. And tight end Tucker Kraft, I don't think he's going to have a big role. It's going to be Romeo Doubs. It's going to be Jaden Reed in the slot, and it's going to be Dontavian Wicks. I think all 3 of these guys could probably be between 30 and 50, 60 yards. One of them is certainly going to break out, but Dontavian Wicks, especially without Christian Watson, I think he might end up being a go-to downfield, kind of assuming that Christian Watson role. He's hit this total 30.5. And this is, by the way, with Christian Watson on the field more often than not. He's hit this total in 4 straight games on unbelievable efficiency. He's only getting 4 or 5 targets, but he's catching at about an 80% rate. Again, that efficiency might tick down, but to the extent the efficiency ticks down, good news, the targets are probably going to tick up without Christian Watson. So I think this kid is probably primed for in the 40 range, and I think 30.5 is too low. And I think it's too low because nobody really knows who Dontavian Wicks is. That's the perfect time to jump on and over. So give me Dontavian Wicks over 30.5 receiving yards at minus 118. Again, we're going to have more plays on this show and way more plays on SportsLine when it comes to these 2 Monday Night Football games. And Danny, I got to get to your picks, but before I do that, let's hear one more message from our partners.
Are you using a plunger to unclog the shake machine, as in the same plunger we use to unclog the toilet? No.
We're going to be opening Mega Good Burgers in cities all over the world.
Whoa. Megacorp wants to replace everybody with robots. We gotta do something. Here's your burger.
That's not soap, by the way. It's maple syrup.
Why?
We are back on the early edge. And Danny, 2-0 yesterday. And I got to start with you. It looks like you've got some really interesting plays on the defensive side of the ball, along with a pick on a total. What you got?
That's right, Sia. And if I'm going to bet on the Packers, I'm betting props because, to be frank with you guys, the Packers have perplexed me a bit this season. I bet against them, on them, over, under. It's gone weird for me. They've been a tough team for me to put to get a pulse on. So I'm going to go for props. And something you can be sure to see in any Giants game is the Giants quarterback on the ground being sacked. And it's happening at an alarming rate all season long. In fact, if you've been watching the NFL, you've been seeing Sam Howell, Zach Wilson, these guys just get sacked uncontrollably with no stopping. The Giants absolutely dwarf them with their number. 69 times a quarterback has been sacked on the New York Giants, whether that's been Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and now Tommy DeVito. I almost said Danny DeVito, just like everybody else. So in 5 games, Tommy DeVito has taken 28 sacks, an alarming pressure rate, and it's coming from all angles. So give me several Packers to try to get a chance on a sack here, all over a quarter sack. So if they gang tackle, they get that half sack. You can catch this. I'm going to sprinkle half a unit on each of these plays, so half your normal size bet. I'm going to go with Rashawn Gary, probably their leading sack getter. He had 3 recently in a game. Preston Smith and Kenny Clark, all guys that I can see getting their hands on Tommy DeVito tonight when the pressure comes and he collapses. Moving on to the Titans-Dolphins game, I'm going to go back to the well and take a prime time under here. And it might be scary, but that's why I like it. If it feels wrong, it's probably right. Public's going to be on the over. I'm seeing early on over 70% of the tickets there, thinking Tua and the high-flying offense is going to light it up on Vrabel's defense there. I know Simmons out, a little bit concerning, but this one's a weather play for me, and hopefully my weather report is correct. But this is a wind-based under. And right now in Miami, we're seeing about 10 to 15 mile per hour winds, but closer to game time, it's supposed to pick up gusts of over 20 miles per hour expected. And if that is the case, it sets off a pretty solid under trend. Also, a very interesting under trend is teams on extended rest. So far, with both teams on extended rest since 2018, the under is 104, 49, and 1. That's a 68% rate to the under. And this season, 28 and 7 so far. So perhaps the rest helps the defense get healthy. I think this number 46.5 is just slightly too high. I'm going to say it goes a little bit under tonight in this primetime matchup.
Yeah, I don't mind that underplay at all. I mean, I think 31-13, something like that is certainly in play. Obviously, it could be much closer. The spread would indicate it'll be at least a little bit closer. But I love all of those plays. And I think the sack plays, we don't usually get a lot of those. So I'm really interested to see how those play out. And Mike McClure, you've got a same game parlay involving the Packers and the Giants game. Tell us about it.
Yes, yeah, same game parlay here. Very similar to a standard 6.2 team teaser. Not exactly the same, but that's where we're going to go with it here. So I have a play here where we're basically taking the Packers on the money line. We're laying the 0.5 point, and then we're going over 30.5 in the game, getting through every one of the key numbers that I want to get through. First of all, the total in this game, I do lean towards the over. We have a little bit of a model edge on that. It's at a very key number, 37 being extremely common as you see 20 to 17 games very, very frequently. That would push, obviously, on that total. Getting this one here down to 30.5 is incredibly key. You're wondering what those key numbers are. 37 is one of them, but really the lower key number that you need to be concerned with is going to be 33. So we are definitely below that, going over it. As far as the Packers, though, I actually like this team offensively. I think they're going to be able to score some points here. They grade out as a top 10 offensive unit in the NFL this year. Win this game, they are a legitimate playoff team. If you check markets right now, they're minus 250 to make the playoffs. I think they're an absolute lock to get in the playoffs if they win this game tonight. So I love this spot for them. The motivation is high. LaFleur's teams have been fantastic in this particular spot. I'm not going to lay the 6 or 6.5 on the spread, but I do like them to win the game. And I like over 30.5 points here. This is minus 115 instead of minus 120, like some of the standard 6-point teasers. You can find this over at MGM.
Mike, I think this is the proper way to attack this game. It's really tough for me to consider laying the 6 here, and I'm not a big teaser guy necessarily, but this does seem like the proper way to attack this game. Just having the Packers needing to win and kind of being right below that key number at 30.5. So I'm down with that one. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just see a quick question there. How about Giants plus 10 in the over 30.5? If you really feel strongly, I would caution against it. The math will definitely be against it. The reason for that, the market is essentially saying they should be a touchdown favorite. Going up to 10 it is certainly not enough. It is not the same going the other way. So if you felt strongly that way, I would simply recommend just betting the Giants and not mess with that. So I think that we can talk about key numbers when we have more time, but it's when you see a 6-point underdog, you're typically not teasing it to try and get to 12. There's no real value in doing that.
All right. We moved to Maestro. And what's interesting is we've done a whole show on these two games, and we haven't talked about a couple of guys that I think people are really going to be leaning on. They're going to want to bet them maybe in the prop market. They're going to want to play them in their DFS lineups. It's a 2-game slate. Kind of fun, by the way, if you do DFS. And I'm talking about Devon Achane and Saquon Barkley. And Maestro, you have 2 picks related to those 2 gentlemen. Talk to us about it. Oh, there it is. There it is. Look at his face.
My bad. I was so excited to talk about Devon Achane, a guy who runs a 4.32 40, a guy who's played 4 full games this season, taking out his opener as a rookie with 233 yards, 120, 165, and 105 from scrimmage. I mean, this is a guy who can literally take it the distance every single time he touches it. And last week, we saw him get 37 snaps. We saw Raheem Mostert only get 23. It was a blowout, but this one could also be a blowout. Raheem Mostert was limited this week with a knee injury. Achane, full practice, though he is dealing with a rib injury. I just love this matchup with Jeffrey Simmons out, with Teair Tart questionable. I mean, I don't know how many touches he needs to get a number like this, but this guy is so explosive, and I think he has another 100-yard day from scrimmage, which he's done as long as he can finish the game. And then secondly, Saquon Barkley, talking this week that the Giants are not out of the playoff race. And yes, they have like a 0.1% chance if they win out. But he's rested. They're going to lean on him. They don't want Tommy DeVito dropping back against the pass rush that Danny talked about. They want to lean on Saquon. The Packers are a run funnel. 30.5 carries is what teams are averaging against the Packers. That's the 4th most. That means you attack the Packers with the run. Quay Walker, doubtful for tonight. I don't know how effective he's going to be, but I love Saquon to get at least 16 carries.
Yeah, Maestro, I completely agree. If you want to win this game, I don't think you can lean on Tommy DeVito and the plethora of wide receivers that the Giants have that really aren't flashing. I mean, maybe it's Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe it's Darius Slayton, maybe it's Jalen Hyatt, but I think if you're going to rely on anything, it's got to be Saquon Barkley. All right.
I'm with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the recap screen before we get out of here. Buckets on Maribor, team total over 1.5, and Konyaspor, Sivaspor, both teams to score -130. Danny Brasco's got a plethora of quarter sack props. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark take the over on all 3 of those. Titans, Dolphins under 46.5. That's Danny Brasco's last pick. I've got Dontavian Wicks over 30.5 receiving yards. Hope to put 1 or 2 more plays on Monday Night Football on SportsLine tonight. Same game parlay. We got Mike McClure, Packers -0.5 plus Packers Giants over 30.5. That's at -115. And the Maestro, Devon Achane over 75.5 rush and receiving yards. Saquon Barkley over 15.5 rushing attempts, both around -120. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a show packed full of picks. You can expect that, of course, every single morning on the Early Edge at 10 a.m. Enjoy Monday Night Football tonight. I'm actually super excited that we have the 2 games. Again, I'm going to be playing some DFS. I'm going to be betting some props. I'm going to be taking that same game parlay that Mike recommended, which I guess is a same game parlay, not technically a teaser. That makes me feel a little bit better about it. Long story short, I hope everybody has a great Monday. We'll see you again here tomorrow. Don't forget CBS Sports HQ tonight. They're going to be talking all kinds of Monday Night Football. For Buckets, for the Maestro, for Mike McClure, Danny Brasco, and Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s. This is the Early Edge. I am the counselor, and we rest our case.